Before diving into the video, did you know that over 80% of you watching right now aren't subscribed? Your one like and one subscribe means the absolute world to this channel and helps us keep going. Hit those buttons real quick, and let's get into the video. Chapter 1. The Dressing Room Discovery. On his wedding day, Ethan stood outside the dressing room and overheard a hushed, intense conversation. Inside was his fiancée, Chloe, and her long-term crush, Kenji, who had recently returned from living abroad. "Chloe, I came back for you," Kenji urged, his voice heavy with intent. "Do you have the courage to run away with me right now?" Chloe's voice carried a hint of coldness, but no real rejection. "Didn't you say you'd never come back after going holidays? Isn't it a little late to say that now?" Kenji shot back meaningfully. "Late? Is it really?" The very next second, Ethan heard the distinct sound of them kissing inside the room. He realized this bastard was actually stealing his girl. No, worse, he was stealing the $100 million tied to his survival. Ethan was just about to kick the door open and beat the cheating pair to death when a piercing alarm blared inside his head. His mental system cried out in absolute panic. "Host, I made a mistake." "No, we made a mistake. Your target isn't Chloe. Your target is Chloe's best friend, Elena." Ethan was completely speechless. "System, can you be any less reliable?" The system, feeling incredibly guilty, whimpered. "Host, there are only 72 hours left for the mission. You need to win over Elena as soon as possible." Ethan nearly lost his mind. "I don't even know where she is. How am I supposed to win her over in 3 days? You stupid system. If you fail my mission, I'll report you to your supervisor, you clueless piece of junk." Inside his head, the system practically dropped to its knees. "Host, I'm sorry. If you complete the mission, I'll personally add another 50 million to your reward. Deal?" Friendly reminder. Elena will be attending your wedding today. Don't worry. Winning her over will be a piece of cake for you. Ethan's eyes lit up. A total of $150 million. What else could he do at this point? He decided to treat a dead horse like it was still alive and give it a shot. Before leaving the hallway, he heard Chloe say inside the room, "Kenji, let's leave now. Ethan and I are going on stage soon." Kenji let out a cold snort. "Why the rush, Chloe? That simp stole my woman for 3 years. I should at least give him a little punishment." Kenji lowered his voice, outlining a plan to publicly humiliate Ethan during the vows, and the two of them burst into laughter. Chloe pouted playfully, complaining, "You're too bad." "What? Do you feel sorry for him?" Kenji asked, displeased. "Of course not. I'll listen to you," she replied. Ethan walked away quickly, disgusted. When he had first transmigrated into this world after dying of overwork in his original life, the system had told him he just needed to marry Chloe, a wealthy heiress, to return to his world rich and revived. For 3 full years, Ethan had diligently played the role of a submissive, hard-working simp, lowering his dignity in every way just to get Chloe to agree to a wedding where he would marry into her family. And now, the system was telling him he had targeted the wrong person all along. He asked the system what would happen if he failed. The system trembled, admitting that normally he would be wiped out. However, because this was a system error, it promised to override permissions and protect him from erasure if time ran out, begging him again not to report it. "I can see your target's affection level right now," the system added. "It's already at 99%. Ethan froze. Elena was a famously cold, noble, and distant beauty who always kept people at arm's length. He couldn't believe she secretly held a 99% affection level for him. But he had no choice but to trust the system and focus entirely on the new mission. Chapter 2. The Altar Escape. A few minutes later, Ethan arrived at the wedding venue. The grand hall was packed. Music played loudly, and thunderous applause erupted as Chloe, dressed in a pure white wedding gown, walked down the aisle toward him. When she reached the stage, the tenderness she usually faked was completely gone. She took the microphone, looking down at Ethan from a position of superiority. "Ethan, are you happy to be marrying me?" As she spoke, her gaze shifted toward the audience. Ethan followed her line of sight and saw Kenji standing in the crowd in a sharp suit, his hands in his pockets. The moment Kenji noticed Ethan looking, He curled his lips into a smug smile and raised his brows in open provocation. They were waiting for the perfect moment to execute their prank and make Ethan lose all face. But Ethan didn't care about them anymore. His eyes rapidly scanned the crowd, looking for his $150 million. System, where's Elena? He demanded. He checked the VIP table reserved for Chloe's friends, but Elena's seat was empty. The system stammered, she hasn't arrived yet, but she's coming. She'll be here any moment. Seeing Ethan ignoring her and looking around the hall, Chloe's expression turned displeased. She gently pushed him and forced a strange smile. Ethan, I'm talking to you. Happy. Ethan replied casually, completely distracted. Chloe's brows tightened. The officiant took the microphone, smoothing over the awkwardness. Groom, from this day forward, whether in poverty or wealth, in sickness or in health, do you swear to love, protect, and stay faithfully by the bride's side? Ethan shrugged. Whatever. Chloe's face instantly turned green. The officiant paused, stunned, before quickly turning to the bride. And bride, do you willingly devote your life to this man? Chloe looked lovingly toward Kenji, whose smile deepened. At that exact microsecond, the system shouted inside Ethan's head, Host! Elena is about to arrive at the entrance. Get ready, kiss her immediately. Ethan became instantly alert, his muscles tensing. Chloe took the microphone, a vindictive smile curving her lips as she prepared to reject him publicly. She only managed one word before the grand double doors at the back of the hall were pushed open a crack. Before the person outside could even step fully into the room, Ethan leapt into action. He jumped straight off the high wedding stage and sprinted down the aisle at full speed. The sudden change left Chloe completely stunned. Ethan, what are you doing? I haven't finished speaking. The crowd froze, erupting into wild whispers. Holy shit, what is the groom doing? Why is he running? Did he regret marrying into the family? Ethan paid them no mind. He reached the doors, threw them open, grabbed a highly confused Elena, and dragged her straight into a nearby private restroom. Without giving her a second to process, he pinned her against the wall and kissed her furiously. Inside his mind, the system cheered wildly. Nice job, host. Yes, Elena likes this kind of forceful romance. Hurry and hide. Chloe is coming out with people to find you. Ethan quickly pulled Elena into a secure bathroom stall, closing the door just as Chloe's high heels clicked furiously against the marble floor outside. That damn Ethan actually dared to mess with me. Chloe roared in a rage to her entourage. When I find him, I'm going to break all 3 of his legs. Chapter 3. The Restroom Confession. The chaotic footsteps outside finally faded into the distance. Ethan let go of Elena, breathing heavily. Standing in the cramped stall, the sudden awkwardness hit him. Elena was famously aloof, a woman who barely spared men a glance, and had rejected every high society marriage proposal her family attempted to arrange. Looking at her shocked expression and her lips, which were red and swollen from a sudden kiss, Ethan secretly whispered to the system, System, if she has me killed in the next second, you'll bring me back, right? The system replied calmly, Host, don't worry. Taking her down really isn't as hard as you think. Follow the script of a 4-style romance novel. Before Ethan could figure out a line, Elena narrowed her eyes. Instead of slapping him hard across the face as he expected, she reached out, grabbed his collar, and pinned him back. Her voice was slightly hoarse, but sharp. Ethan, today is your wedding with Chloe. What exactly do you think you're doing? Her intense gaze locked him in place. For the sake of his $150 million, Ethan forced his expression to soften into a deeply affectionate, vulnerable look. Meeting her eyes, he said word by word, Elena, I've never liked Chloe. The person I've always loved is you. Elena froze, the coldness in her eyes wavering before a faint, mocking smile appeared. You like me? Ethan, don't joke. If you really like me, why would you marry Chloe? Seeing the deep doubt in her eyes, Ethan's brain spun rapidly. He forced a bitter, helpless smile, letting his tone fill with deep sincerity. I know it sounds ridiculous, But I had no choice. From the very beginning, I knew a woman like you would never have any interest in an ordinary guy like me. I didn't dare confess because I was terrified that if I did, we wouldn't even be able to stay friends. He noticed her expression soften slightly, so he pressed on, weaving the ultimate tragic backstory. So I chose Chloe. I agreed to marry her thinking that as long as I could become part of her social circle, I could occasionally see you from afar and silently stay by your side. That would have been enough for me. But just now, at the moment of the vows, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I can't lie to myself. I can't let you marry into my life as just a friend. He took her hand, looking at her intently. Do you believe me? Elena didn't answer immediately. She studied his face, her cold eyes melting into a complicated mix of hesitation and a deep, hidden softness she hadn't realized she possessed. Finally, a faint, amused smile played on her lips. So, after kissing me like that, what else do you want to do? Ethan's mouth ran ahead of his brain. Sleep with you and marry you. Elena's lips parted slightly, a beautiful blush rapidly creeping up her face. At that exact moment, her phone loudly vibrated in her clutch. The name flashing on the screen was Chloe. Chapter 4, Safe House. Elena did not answer the call. Instead, she flipped the phone face down and muted it. Tilting her head up, her lips almost brushing against the corner of Ethan's jaw, she whispered with a dangerous edge, Ethan, if you're playing me, you're dead. I love you too much to ever play you. Ethan blurted out flawlessly. Elena led him quickly through the hotel's back service entrance, bypassing the chaotic search parties. They got in her luxury car, and she drove him straight to her highly secure, private villa on the edge of the city. A few hours later, after they had both showered and were about to initiate something much more intimate in the master bedroom, the villa's front security gates buzzed. Chloe had actually tracked them down and was throwing a tantrum at the front door. Ethan wanted to strangle her. He already had his pants off. Was this woman seriously here to ruin his business now? She had planned to run away from the wedding herself. So now that he had beaten her to the punch, why was she clinging to him instead of celebrating with Kenji? Elena told Ethan to stay upstairs out of sight while she went down to handle it. Wearing only her silk nightwear, Elena descended the stairs. Chloe was sitting on the sofa in a huff, her wedding dress ruined at the hem, her veil completely torn off. Elena! Chloe cried out angrily the moment her friend appeared. Ethan ran away from the wedding. Elena raised an eyebrow, putting on a perfectly shocked expression. What? Something like that actually happened. Chloe grabbed a glass of water from the coffee table, downing it in one go before continuing viciously. Yes, I was actually planning to run away first and leave him at the altar, but who knew that coward would escape during the vows? Damn it. Elena calmly took a sip of her own water. Since you weren't even planning to marry him, isn't him running away a good thing for you? Standing at the top of the stairs, quietly observing the scene below, Ethan was equally curious. Why was Chloe so psychotic about it? That's different. Chloe snapped, her voice rising sharply. I only planned to run away on impulse to teach him a lesson, but he clearly planned his escape in advance. The venue staff said they saw him dragging a woman into the restroom. He must have been cheating on me for a long time. My parents already didn't approve of him, and now he's humiliated me in front of all our relatives and friends. Ethan is a piece of trash, and I will never let him get away with this. Elena nodded slowly, her face completely blank. Then he really is quite bad. Chloe anxiously twisted her fingers, suddenly looking up at Elena with a probing, suspicious gaze. Elena, I checked the hotel surveillance. Your car was parked at the back entrance right when he fled, but the footage after that is completely gone. Did you see who Ethan left with? Upstairs, Ethan let out a massive sigh of relief. Thank goodness he had reminded Elena to have her security team wipe the hotel's digital cameras the moment they stepped out. Elena shook her head smoothly. I didn't see anything. I was supposed to attend, but I wasn't feeling well when I arrived at the hotel, so I decided to drive back early. Chloe frowned, entirely consumed by her rage. Help me find Ethan. If I catch the cheating pair, I'll make sure he can never have children. Elena smiled meaningfully. All right, I'll keep an eye out for him. Thank you. Sorry to trouble you. I'm going to search his apartment next, Chloe muttered, hugging Elena briefly before rushing out of the villa. Once the front door slammed shut, Elena turned toward the second floor and called out, "You can come down now." Ethan walked down the stairs, and Elena opened her arms to him with a sweet smile. "Hold me." Ethan didn't hesitate. He wrapped one arm around her waist, slid the other under her knees, lifted her effortlessly into his arms, and carried her straight back upstairs to finish what they had started, fully intent on securing his mission. Chapter 5. The Banquet Invitation. A full day passed in absolute isolation, and Elena almost drained Ethan completely. As he finally sat up to get dressed, the system started chattering happily in his ear. "Host, great news. Elena's current affection level for you has officially reached 100%. I told you it would be easy. She totally falls for your type. But you need to keep going. You only have 48 hours left. Hurry up and propose to her." Ethan rubbed his temples, slightly annoyed. If her affection is already at 100%, why hasn't the mission cleared? The system answered confidently, "Affection is just a stat, host. The requirement for mission completion is a legal marriage." Ethan felt a headache coming on. Even if Elena adored him, convincing a high-society billionaire to marry an ordinary guy within 48 hours seemed impossible. But the system insisted that Elena viewed Ethan's simple smiles as advanced seduction techniques, assuring him he held total psychological sway over her. Ethan walked around the villa, looking for her, but she was nowhere to be found. Just as he pulled out his phone, a message came through from her. Elena invited him to attend a high-profile charity banquet that evening. A custom suit had already been delivered to the villa by her personal assistant, along with an address. Ethan hesitated. Time was ticking, and he was terrified Chloe might be there. If Chloe caused a scene, it could delay the proposal, or worse, make Elena hesitate out of loyalty to her childhood best friend. But for the sake of the $150 million, Ethan decided to risk it. Hours later, Ethan arrived at the crowded, glittering banquet hall. He looked incredibly sharp in the tailored suit Elena had chosen for him. As he scanned the room for her, he patted his pocket. He had a ring ready. The moment he found the right window, he would propose and secure a wedding for the very next day. Suddenly, a distinct chill ran down his spine, as if a dangerous predator had locked onto him. He turned around and immediately met Chloe's murderous, bloodshot stare. Before he could even speak, Chloe let go of Kenji's arm and rushed toward Ethan, swinging her hand to strike him. Ethan's reflexes kicked in. He grabbed her wrist firmly midair and flung her aside with force. "What is wrong with you?" Ethan demanded coldly. Chloe stumbled back, her eyes burning with humiliation and rage. She gritted her teeth. "Ethan, don't you have anything to explain to me?" Ethan looked at her without a single shred of guilt. He knew her anger wasn't out of love. It was pure narcissism because he had embarrassed her by running away first. "Explain? Explain what?" "Look at you and Kenji right now. Inseparable, acting like a married couple. Why should I care? And what right do you have to question me?" Chloe's face darkened, her fists clenching tightly. But before she could scream, Kenji stepped between them, pulling Chloe back. Kenji looked at Chloe with sudden suspicion. "Chloe, what does this mean? Were you lying to me all along? Didn't you say you cut this loser off completely? Why are you so emotional right now? Do you still have feelings for it?" Chapter 6. The slap heard round the venue. Chloe immediately flushed with deep embarrassment and anger, turning on Kenji on the spot. "Kenji, what nonsense are you talking about? How could I still be thinking about him? He's the one who deceived my feelings and wasted 3 years of my life. What's wrong with me demanding an explanation? If it weren't for him clinging to me back then, I would have been with you long ago." Kenji let out a cold, cynical laugh, entirely unconvinced. "I think you just never let him go. Otherwise, why would you react so violently? You also promised you were going to marry me immediately after the failed wedding. Yet you keep delaying it with excuses." "I am not," Chloe snapped sharply, before turning her furious gaze back to Ethan. "Ethan, this is all because of you. You lied to me, and now you dare to show up at this banquet? Today, you must drop to your knees and apologize to me and to Kenji, otherwise you won't leave this hall alive." Hearing this, Kenji's expression finally eased. He wrapped a possessive arm around Chloe's waist and sneered at Ethan. "Ethan, I don't care what your past relationship was. Since Chloe is with me now, she's my woman. If you're smart, apologize to her right now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." The surrounding high society guests had already noticed the loud commotion. All eyes in the ballroom turned toward them, and whispers began spreading like wildfire. The anger Ethan had suppressed for 3 long years of playing a mindless simp finally ignited. He had no conscience left when it came to Chloe. During the entire mission, he had catered to her every whim while Kenji was comfortably living abroad. Their wedding escape plan was exactly what she had wanted anyway. He had simply acted a step ahead. He had officially reached his absolute limit. Before Chloe could utter another threat, Ethan raised his hand and slapped her across the face with all the strength in his body. Smack! The crisp, violent sound echoed clearly across the silent banquet hall. Chloe's head snapped violently to the side, 5 clear finger marks instantly inflating on her pale cheek. She froze completely, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Without a moment's hesitation, Ethan grabbed a full glass of red wine from a passing waiter's tray and poured it directly over her head. "Chloe, don't act all innocent while behaving like a shameless cheat," Ethan said, his voice echoing coldly word by word. "I know exactly what you and Kenji did and said in the dressing room on our wedding day. You cheated on me with him, planned to humiliate me on stage, and now you're trying to turn the blame on me? Every one of you is disgusting in your own way." Ethan let out a harsh scoff. "Breaking off the engagement with a woman like you is something I'd celebrate with fireworks. That slap was to tell you that you mean absolutely nothing to me. Stop thinking so highly of yourself. You want me to apologize? Are you even worthy?" Ethan raised his middle finger directly at Chloe and Kenji. Erupting in a blind rage, Kenji charged forward to tackle him. But Ethan was faster. He lifted his leg and kicked Kenji square in the groin. Caught completely off guard, Kenji collapsed instantly, curling into a fetal position on the floor in pure, breathless agony, his face twisting as he groaned. Ethan looked down at him with utter contempt. "And as for you, you piece of trash, congratulations. You picked up the garbage I willingly threw away." The entire venue fell into an eerie, suffocating silence. Chapter 7. The True Accomplice. Chloe stood there, covered in crimson wine from head to toe. Her expensive hair, face, and designer dress were entirely ruined and dripping. After finally snapping out of her shock, she roared at the top of her lungs, "Ethan, I'm going to kill you. Security. Where's the damn security?" The massive commotion had drawn the attention of the hosts at the front of the hall. Elena, who had been speaking with city officials, saw what was happening. She whispered a few cold words to the massive security detail behind her and walked calmly through the crowd. The guests instinctively parted like the Red Sea, making way for her. The moment Chloe saw her, she looked as if she had found her ultimate savior. "Elena, that bastard Ethan actually dared to hit me. Help me get revenge right now." Everyone knew Elena's family held far greater power than Chloe's, possessing deep corporate dominance and heavy underworld connections that no one dared cross. Elena glanced at Chloe's disheveled state calmly. "And how exactly do you want me to help you?" Chloe's eyes burned with pure hatred. "Break his legs, make sure he can never stand again, and find the cheating bitch he ran off with from the wedding. Send them both to hell." Elena blinked slowly, and then a stunning, brilliant smile curved her lips. "I'm sorry, Chloe, but the bitch you're talking about is me." In an instant, Chloe's face looked as if it were physically shattering. Her eyes widened to the size of saucers as she stared back and forth between Elena and Ethan, completely unable to process the words. Elena walked directly over to Ethan's side with complete ease, wrapping her arm tightly around his and smiling sweetly up at him. "Baby, someone wants to break your legs. Aren't you scared? If you kiss me right now, I'll break hers instead. How about that?" Ethan looked down into her bright, sparkling eyes. She looked like a playful queen waiting for her prize. All right, Ethan smiled. I have no reason to refuse. He cupped her face and gently kissed her lips right in front of the entire high society crowd. The hall erupted into absolute chaos. Chloe's eyes turned bloodshot, her voice trembling violently. You too. Elena turned back to Chloe, nodding casually. Exactly what you see. Ethan and I are together. He's my man now. Chloe's face twisted into an ugly mask of betrayal. So, the woman he was with that day was you? The day I came to your villa asking for help. You were both fooling me. Elena, I treated you as my best friend. You betrayed me. Elena leaned comfortably against Ethan, her tone dripping with ice-cold mockery. Betrayed you? Don't flatter yourself, Chloe. You're so stupid. Without Ethan, I wouldn't have ever bothered being your friend in the first place. Chloe gasped in disbelief, trembling from head to toe. You two are disgusting. I won't let this go. Your families will face the consequences. Elena's eyes narrowed, a dangerous, predatory glint flashing within them. She stepped out of Ethan's arms, folded her hands, and looked down at Chloe like a bug. Won't let it go. Her voice was like pure winter frost. Under the immense pressure of Elena's aura, Chloe froze instantly, her face turning entirely pale. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Elena suddenly stepped forward, grabbed Chloe tightly by the chin, and lightly patted her stained face with her open palm, while Chloe stared in absolute terror. You absolute idiot. I should be thanking you for giving up on Ethan and picking up a piece of trash instead. Elena released her disgustedly and gestured to her personal secretary, who stepped forward and tossed a heavy document envelope directly onto Chloe's lap. Chloe frowned, opening it with trembling fingers. At the first glance of the financial audits and photographs inside, her expression morphed into horror. She lifted her head, her murderous, enraged gaze locking tightly onto Kenji, who was still groveling on the floor. Kenji, looking incredibly guilty, immediately looked away, unable to meet her eyes. Chapter 8. The Fall of the Scumbags. Elena addressed the crowd, her voice carrying across the silent hall. You think Kenji came back to you after all these years abroad out of true love, Chloe? No, it's because he knew you were incredibly stupid and easy to fool. He is drowning in millions of dollars of gambling debts, hooked on illicit habits, and even got a girl pregnant out of wedlock overseas. He only came back to target you so he could siphon your family's wealth to pay off his cartels and support his secret child. Chloe's eyes overflowed with tears of rage. She screamed at Elena. If you already knew all this, why didn't you tell me earlier? Elena raised an elegant eyebrow, her tone entirely indifferent. If I told you earlier, would you have had the chance to be this spectacularly stupid? Chloe's world completely collapsed. She turned to Kenji, screaming hysterically. Kenji, you lied to me. You've been lying to me from the very beginning. Unable to contain her explosive rage, she threw herself onto the floor, slapping Kenji hard across the face. You bastard. I gave up my wedding for you, and you treated me like a fool. Kenji tried to grab her hands to protect his face, but Chloe dodged him in pure disgust. He could only desperately crawl forward, sobbing. Chloe, it's all a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to lie, I swear. I was just too in love with you, and I was terrified you'd leave me if I told you the truth. Please believe me, my feelings for you are real. Believe you? How am I supposed to believe you? Chloe shrieked, striking him left and right until his face swelled up and blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. She had completely lost her mind. You owe a lot of gambling debt, don't you? If I call your loan sharks right now and tell them exactly which room you're in, what do you think they'll do to you? At those words, Kenji completely panicked. He dropped all his dignity, clutching the wet hem of Chloe's dress tightly, crying pitifully. Chloe, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied to you. I deserve to die. I was just momentarily blinded. Please give me one more chance. I won't dare do it again. I love you. Please forgive me just this once. Chloe looked down at his pathetic, weeping form, suddenly laughing in pure contempt. Kenji, You really do look like a literal dog right now. Kenji froze, staring up at her in horror. At that moment, realizing she was completely ruined, Chloe turned to Elena and pleaded, "Elena, the idea to run away from the wedding was entirely his. He was the one who wanted to humiliate Ethan. It was all his plan, I swear." Kenji panicked wildly, waving his hands. "No, I didn't. That's not true. She's lying." Elena didn't care to listen further. She raised her hand slightly. Instantly, four massive corporate bodyguards stepped forward, grabbed Kenji by his collar, and dragged him kicking and screaming out of the ballroom toward a secure back room. His muffled screams echoed down the hallway. Watching the absolute ruin of the two people who had tried to destroy him, Ethan felt immensely satisfied. Serves him right. At that moment, the system's voice cut through his thoughts. "Host, stop watching the sideshow. Focus on the real task. Time is running out." Ethan snapped back to reality. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the silver ring, and dropped to one knee directly in front of Elena. "Elena, I love you. Will you marry me?" Before Elena could answer, Chloe desperately crawled forward, grabbing Elena's ankles, weeping. "Elena, please don't accept him. Can you please give Ethan back to me? I was wrong, please." Elena looked down, peeling Chloe's fingers off her designer shoes one by one with complete coldness. "It's too late, Chloe. The man I take, I never let go." Elena gracefully slipped the silver ring onto her own finger and looked down at Ethan with a soft, radiant smile. "Ethan, I accept." Chloe turned completely ashen. She collapsed flat onto the marble floor, tears streaming down her face, and fainted from pure shock and psychological trauma. "What bad luck," Ethan muttered, standing up and wrapping his arm around his new fiancée. Chapter 9. The Billion-Dollar Contract. After another night of intense, exhausting effort back at the villa, Elena officially agreed to hold their wedding ceremony that very morning. Everything was moving so quickly and smoothly, it felt completely surreal. The system chirped happily in Ethan's ear as he stood in the groom's suite. "Host, friendly reminder. You have exactly 24 hours left on the clock. As long as you successfully sign the registry and say 'I do' today, your mission will be fully complete. Let me congratulate you in advance." Ethan shook his head. "You seem way more excited about this than I am, system." At that moment, the door opened and Elena walked in. She looked breathtakingly beautiful in a custom-designed lace wedding gown, but in her hand, she held a thick legal document. "Sign this," she said directly. "After you sign it, we'll go out to the altar and get married." Ethan took the papers in confusion. As his eyes scanned the text, he froze. It was an unconditional, absolute property transfer agreement. Written clearly in black and white, Elena was voluntarily transferring 100% of her personal assets, her mansions, luxury car fleets, corporate shares, and global bank accounts, directly into Ethan's name without a single reservation. She was giving him billions of dollars. A strange, heavy feeling rose in Ethan's chest. This massive fortune was almost too hot to hold. For the first time, he felt a genuine pang of guilt. He secretly queried the system in his mind. "System, if I complete the mission and leave this world to return to my original life, what happens to Elena?" The system replied carelessly, "No idea, host. Just treat her like a highly advanced line of code in this simulated world." But looking at her, Ethan realized he couldn't do that. She was a living, breathing person who was giving him everything she owned. "System, can I take Elena and everything she gave me back to my original world when I leave?" The system sounded oddly pleased, its voice changing slightly. "Yes, host. You absolutely can." Elena noticed Ethan's deep distraction and waved her hand gently in front of his face. "Ethan, what are you thinking about so seriously?" Ethan's eyes fell on her hand. She was still wearing the cheap, simple silver band he had hurriedly bought for the proposal. It didn't even fit perfectly. It was slightly loose on her delicate finger, but she hadn't taken it off once. Ethan looked in her eyes and couldn't help but ask, "Elena, do you really like me that much? Why would you do all this?" Elena met his gaze with absolute seriousness. "Yes, I've met many men in my life. Handsome ones, rich ones, gentle ones, and powerful ones. But it wasn't until the moment I met you that I truly understood what heart-pounding feelings are. You're the only person I've ever wanted to run toward without a single hesitation. Ethan tried to lighten the mood, his voice half joking. You transferred all your assets to me. Aren't you worried you'll regret it if I turn out to be a scumbag? Elena gently touched his cheek, her smile incredibly soft and certain. I won't regret it. If I lose money, I have the brain to earn it all back. But I only want to give everything I have to the one person I truly love. It would be an absolute lie to say Ethan wasn't moved. The wall he had built around his heart during 3 years of fake simping completely shattered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly against his chest, and whispered in her ear, Elena, if one day I have to leave this world entirely, would you come with me? He braced himself for confusion, questions, or marks of doubt. But the moment the words left his lips, Elena let out a soft, melodious laugh against his shoulder. Actually, I already know everything, Ethan. You don't need to explain so much to me. Ethan froze solid, pulling back to stare at her blankly. What do you mean? What do you know? Elena looked up at him slowly, her bright eyes filled with an ancient, deeply familiar warmth. I'm not the original Elena of this world. To be precise, Ethan, I am your system. Chapter 10. I do. Ethan was completely stunned, his mind going entirely blank. He stared at her, unable to utter a single word. The cold, mechanical, bossy system that had been bound to his soul, issuing missions in his head for 3 years, had turned into a living, breathing woman. He had been dating his own system this whole time. While accompanying you through your arduous missions over the last 3 years, watching your dedication and your struggles, I gradually developed human self-awareness. Elena explained softly, her hand resting over his heart. And slowly, I realized I'd fallen in love with you. She smiled at his shocked face. A few days ago, I realized that your original mission with Chloe was mathematically guaranteed to fail because of her secret plot with Kenji. Once the wedding clock hit 0 and the mission failed, you would have been directly erased from existence by the core protocol. I couldn't let you die. So, I used my absolute system administrative authority to forcibly rewrite the mission parameters, replace the target with myself, and transmigrated into this world using the identity of Chloe's billionaire best friend, Elena. At that moment, every single illogical event over the past 2 days suddenly made perfect sense. No wonder the target suddenly changed right at the altar. No wonder Elena's affection level was mysteriously already at 99% before he had even spoken to her. No wonder she perfectly wiped the hotel cameras and defended him so flawlessly. She was the one running the simulation. After she finished speaking, Elena looked up at him with a rare hint of nervousness in her eyes. Now that you know the truth, that I am the entity that bound you, are you still willing to marry me and be with me? Ethan looked at her. She was stunningly beautiful, fiercely capable, held billions of dollars in assets, and most importantly, she had literally rewritten the laws of the universe just to keep him alive. A wife like this couldn't be found even if he searched the cosmos with a lantern. Of course I'm willing, Ethan said, his voice thick with genuine emotion. He smiled, holding her face. I'd be an idiot to say no to you. They walked out of the dressing room together, hand in hand, and entered the grand wedding hall. Just as they reached the altar, the doors at the back opened. Chloe arrived, pushed in a wheelchair by her family's assistants, her face pale and hollow. She opened her mouth to scream, to protest, to cause a final scene. But before she could even utter a single syllable, Elena's security team seamlessly stepped in, turned the wheelchair around, and pushed her out of the venue. Ethan later heard that Chloe's family, utterly disgraced by her scandals, had permanently stripped her of her inheritance and arranged a strict, loveless marriage alliance for her with an old businessman in a distant province. She would never bother them again. The marriage officiant stood before Ethan and Elena, smiling warmly. Groom, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? Ethan looked deeply into Elena's eyes, squeezing her hand. I do. And bride, do you take this man? I do, Elena replied instantly. The countdown in Ethan's mind hit 0, and a grand notification flashed in his vision. Mission complete. Reward secured. $150 million and permanent revival. From that moment on, whether they chose to stay and run their corporate empire in this world or return to Ethan's original universe to live a life of absolute luxury, they could choose freely. After all, his beautiful new wife held the keys to the entire universe. Chapter 11. Two Worlds, One Home. A year after the grand wedding, the corporate empire Ethan and Elena commanded was running flawlessly on autopilot. In the real world, the $150 million had materialized perfectly in Ethan's bank account, and his physical body was fully revived, healthier than it had ever been. Thanks to Elena's system privileges, they had established a seamless dimensional anchor inside their villa study. With a simple turn of a key, they could step freely between the high society luxury of the simulated world and the vibrant, familiar streets of Ethan's original universe. On a quiet Sunday evening, the couple sat on the rooftop terrace of their penthouse overlooking the city skyline. Elena leaned against Ethan's shoulder, lazily twirling the simple silver band that she still refused to replace with diamonds. "So, multi-billionaire CEO," Elena teased, looking up at him with a soft smile. "We have all the money in two universes, absolute freedom, and eternity ahead of us. Any grand plans for tomorrow?" Ethan laughed, wrapping his arm tightly around her waist and kissing the top of her head. "Tomorrow, I think we'll just stay right here, cook a quiet dinner together, and enjoy the fact that we never have to follow anyone else's script ever again." Elena laughed, a warm, beautifully human sound, as the system interface in Ethan's mind quietly dissolved into a permanent message of absolute synchronization. They had beaten the system, conquered the worlds, and found their ultimate home in each other. Chapter 12. The Next Generation. 10 years later, the quiet penthouse terrace was no longer quiet. The sound of running footsteps echoed through the halls as two bright, energetic children chased each other toward the rooftop garden. Leo, their 9-year-old son, had inherited his father's sharp, observant hazel eyes, while his 6-year-old sister, Iris, possessed a startlingly brilliant gaze that occasionally flashed with a familiar, knowing warmth. Ethan stood by the grill, a spatula in hand, watching his children run past with a smile that reached his eyes. Elena stepped out onto the terrace, carrying a pitcher of fresh lemonade. Time hadn't touched her. She looked just as breathtaking as the day she stepped through the parting crowd at the banquet hall, though her sharp aura had softened into pure, radiant maternal warmth. "Leo, don't run near the ledge." "Iris, stop using your mother's luck to win at tag," Ethan called out, laughing as Iris suddenly made an impossibly sharp turn to tag her brother. Because of Elena's unique origins, the children possessed an uncanny, almost intuitive understanding of the world around them, making parenthood a wildly entertaining adventure. Elena walked up behind Ethan, wrapping her arms around his waist and leaning her head against his back. "They're getting faster. I think Leo almost figured out how to bypass the study's lock today." Ethan turned around in her embrace, setting the spatula down to pull her close. "Let him try. He'll just find a room full of books in one universe and a high-tech gaming setup in the other." Iris skidded to a halt in front of them, tugging on Elena's lace dress. "Mommy, Daddy, when we grow up, can we run our own universes too?" Elena knelt down, gently pinching her daughter's cheek while Leo trotted over to join them. She looked up at Ethan, her eyes sparkling with absolute contentment, before looking back at her children. "You can do whatever you want," Elena smiled, her voice filled with certain, unshakable happiness. "But the most important rule is to always choose love over the script." Ethan knelt down beside them, pulling his whole family into a tight embrace. The simulated world, the real world, the millions in the bank, none of it compared to the absolute wealth of the family they had built together.